You can do so much when you're doing by yourself, but you can do so much more when you do with others. And to do with others, you need to inspire.
Hi everyone, welcome to On The Go with Manav. I'm your host, Manav, and today I'm here with Martin. So I met Martin when I was solo traveling in Berlin not too long ago, and we just got along, and I heard about his background story, which I'll let him introduce a bit more about himself, and we can take it from there. So Martin, could you please tell us a bit more about yourself?
Absolutely. And Manav, thanks so much for having me, man. It's such a pleasure to be here and have this conversation with you and exchange a little bit more of my experiences. So thanks a lot again. Well, I'm Martin. I'm currently 42 years old, although I don't look like, I hope. Yeah, I'm originally a Brazilian. I currently live in Amsterdam. I work for the company called Perfetti Van Melle, and I have the privilege to be ahead of a brand that many millions of people love across the globe called Chupa Chups, the famous lollipop brand. I'm married and I have a daughter of 2 years old that was born here while we were living in the Netherlands. So that's a little bit about myself.
Very nice, Martin. Now let's go back in time. I'd like to know a bit more about who you were before you went through your career journey to become the person that you are today. So could you please tell us a bit more about what was it like being born and raised in Brazil?
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's, of course, you can imagine such a nostalgic question and also very relevant, right? Because our roots are really what defines us. And Brazil
Yeah.
is such an amazing country. It's a beautiful continental country with so many things to see. Very beautiful, very extensive, and with a very loving people that you can get along well and you can connect. And people are really, really true to themselves, and they can be really welcoming to people. So it is a real pleasure. You're really trying to figure out and understand your place in the world and how things can be so different for people across the world and across the country, where the differences in social classes and the access that you get can be so massively different that it's impossible for you not to think about this and what this means. So this clearly marked my journey, of course, growing in Brazil and trying to figure out my place in the world and how I could contribute somehow, to live the world slightly better than where I found to start with.
Brazil is one place that's still in my list that I haven't gone yet, and I'm hoping to really go in the next 1 or 2 years. So the more you talk about it, Martin, the more I'm just like, why can't I go there now? But yeah, I'm hoping to go there soon with my dad as well, because he's got some people he knows in Brazil as well. So what made you want to go to the US? Because when I spoke with you, you mentioned to me that you lived around a couple of states. You were there for a few years. So could you please tell us what made you want to go to the US and what did you learn from, or one big takeaway you learned from living in the US?
Absolutely. It was such an important experience as part of my journey. And I have a lot of pleasure talking about it in hopes that I can also inspire people to, go outside of their comfort zone and really seek for expanding their borders. Let's put it that way. Yeah, I studied international relations in the university. And during the years of university, I had to study and work at the same time in order to, go by and be able to keep the expenses rolling as I was studying in a really nice, great university in Brazil, but a bit far away from where my parents were, which meant that I needed to, around 20 years old, which was the age I had at the time, start living in another city and then taking care of myself. And at the time, it was important for me to study, and therefore during the university years, I kept studying the normal curriculum, studying and also studying English. But I didn't have the chance or opportunity at that time to go spend some time abroad, as so many people do. Sometimes doing a couple of months in a foreign country, let's say, to really perfect the language. Of course, as you know, English is not the mother language in Brazil. We speak Portuguese. So, and for me, with following through with this career, it was extremely important for me to acquire, let's say, a fluent level in English. So although I already had good communication level skills in Brazil, I really wanted to just go abroad. Furthermore, growing up in Brazil in general, depending, of course, on where you live, we really have a strong influence from the US overall. So let's say US movies are a constant part of our lives. And we grow up watching from Disney to Pixar, to
Mm.
movies overall. So this has been a country that always exerts some nice influence over me. Particularly, New York was a city that it was the top of my list, let's say, of places to go during my life.
Yeah.
And yeah, so everything really came together. At the time, the US had a certain type of visa that they would offer for students from across the globe to fulfill some positions, particularly in seasonal work. So let's say, imagine they open an amusement park that it's only open during summertime, and suddenly they need 3,000 people. So it's not so easy for them to go and just get these people around the neighborhood. So they have these special permits to bring people from abroad. And I was lucky enough to be accepted at the time for one work position when I applied, and therefore I went to the US and I had a really amazing journey there. During the 3 years I spent, I never stopped in a single place. So I was every 6 months moving across the country, and I got the chance to live a couple of months in Florida, Vermont, Long Island. Then I went also to California. I got to see the main cities. And during the time I spent there, I was also studying. So every time I was setting foot in some place for a few months and I was looking for, let's say, a community college that would be offering some sort of a management training or logistics or supply chain, different areas that I think it would be, say, adding to my curriculum. But and you asked me about the main takeaway. I think that the excellence culture that you see in the US in terms of your service, how you are expected, let's say, to deliver service at a high level, that was something that was always super impactful to me and something that I took. And a lot of conversations around, being a good team player and also working collaboratively, which is also an essential part of the American culture work per se. And lastly, the opportunity that I had during these 3 years to meet people from the entire planet, pretty much. Let's say, the US is a very open country, and I met a lot of people that were exactly doing what I was doing from all continents. So this was such an enriching experience that really, I would say, that it was a turning point and a defining point of my adult life that I hold very dearly in my heart, and the experiences that I had at that time.
It's so interesting that although you were born and raised in Brazil, that you had a lot of influence from the US. Because I was born and raised in Hong Kong, and I had the exact same thing where I grew up watching a lot more American shows, listening to a lot more American music. I was more influenced by American culture rather than British, which is ironic that I'm living in the UK right now. So it was so funny in work or whenever I meet, my British friends here, it's more like I get told that I have an American accent a lot just because of the American influences I had growing up. I've been to the US a few times to visit, but when you went to the US, did you have a plan that you were going to stay there for 3 years? Or were you just like, I'm just going to go here spontaneously and see where life takes me?
No, it's a very good question. It's good to say as well, Brazil has a very rich local culture as well. Brazil
Okay.
is made of people that came from all over the world as well, Italians, Germans, Portuguese. But culturally speaking, because of the power of the industry and also the American hegemony in Americas, the cultural influence that they exert in Brazil is very powerful, even though we have a local rich culture. So I think there's a bit of this dichotomy, or let's say complementarity, that happens between the two cultures. And when I went to the US, that's a good question. I was originally planning to stay just about 6 months, which was the first term of my visa. But then you had the opportunity to stay up until 3 years if every 6 months you would renew your visa by finding a new employer. And at the time, I was just amazed by everything I was experiencing there in terms of learning, in terms of access also, because let's be true, the difference in income, even at an entry level in the US versus what you can get in Brazil, it can be really something that impresses people at first. So I was getting like a $500 paycheck for the first time, which in Brazil at the time meant at least like 5 times the minimum wage. And
Wow.
of course, of course, things changed a lot on the past 10, 15 years, but the purchasing power in the US is really high. So with that amount of money, I could suddenly be starting to think and have things that I had never imagined to have when I was in Brazil. And that was, of course, very seductive for some time, on top of the cultural and travel experiences that I was having. So yeah, I ended up staying pretty much 3 years. At the end of the time, yeah, I was happy to come back to Brazil, but it was also difficult times in the world because we were going. It was 27 to 2010, which meant that the world was going through the economical crisis that was yeah, extremely relevant, particularly in the US. So they were tough times, but I was glad to go back in Brazil and then reconnect with my culture, reconnect with my family, and then start my career, which gladly took me to where I am today.
So you lived in the US during your 20s. Now, I can tell you've learned a lot from just being there. I asked you the question of one key takeaway you had from living in the US. Now, is there a key takeaway you've learned from your 20s? It's something you could also not just tell me, but also people in their 20s who might be listening to this right now.
That's also a powerful one, Manav, and thanks for asking that. And I spent some time reflecting about this. You know, on your 20s, you have your entire life in front of you. It feels like that, right? But you're also a bit overwhelmed by the pressures and the responsibility and by all
Oh,
the
yeah.
questions you have on who you can be and what you want to do. And for me, I always had this passion, you know, this grit. I call it hunger. You know, that I really wanted to do something, and I wanted to be someone, and I wanted to accomplish things. You know, and now looking in retrospective, I would have loved that during that time, someone would have told me, "Hey, you're already someone. It is good to be hungry. It is good to have passion, to commit, and never stop, but also it's good to feel good about yourself. And that's the first thing that you probably need to focus on. And I know maybe sounds a bit cheesy and it's a bit hard, you know, to tell that to someone that around
Mm.
20 years old, but that would definitely be the advice that I would give myself, let's say. And the main learning I have looking in retrospective was at the time I was so hungry and I wanted to do so much that at times I slipped in being, let's say, more considerate, more vulnerable, more empathic. And looking now, I see that throughout my career, I really needed to learn that you can do so much when you're doing by yourself, but you can do so much more when you do with others. And to do with others, you need to inspire. And to inspire, you need to connect. And to connect, you need to be vulnerable. So those were things that I didn't know at the time, but I learned the hard lesson because when I got there in the US and I met with these amazing people from all across the world with so many different cultures, I really had a culture shock at some point. And I was
Yeah.
really starting to, unfortunately, create some conflictual situations with some of my colleagues, which was also coming from a high competitiveness and really trying to be better or best. So, yeah, I would say that after 3 years spending in the US, I really came to the realization of the importance of it is good to be hungry, but it's also even more important for you to connect, understand, and do things together. This was the biggest realization for me.
I'm glad you learned that lesson for you to tell that to us. I truly agree with you what you said by just trying to find ways to not just be hungry, but grow and just be the best version of yourself. So that's great. Moving to the next question. So going back, we talked about you moving back to Brazil. So how did you get into the industry that you're in right now, which is marketing? Was this through a passion? Did you do an internship or course? Is this what you studied in university?
As I mentioned, my course was international relations, which in general, you study a lot about history, sociology, well, geopolitics, which were already areas that I had a lot of interest on when I was growing up. So it was a natural fit in that sense. Frankly speaking, I didn't mention that, but during the university, I mentioned that I was working. And one of the first works I got was actually an internship, which was in a company that was at the time a bit of ahead of their time because it wasn't as big as it is today, selling and exporting what we call organic products, particularly organic coffee, as Brazil is one of the biggest coffee producers worldwide. So during the years that I was in university, I was in a way already working with marketing because our biggest ambition at the time was really to grow the small family-owned business by finding new customers, finding new clients. So at the time, I was really working on, you know, organizing our offer and reaching out to new customers. Yeah, creating, let's say, folders, marketing materials, and things like that. There wasn't even social media at the time. We're talking
Yeah.
about almost 15 years ago. But it was great. It was a great experience, and it was my first really important professional experience. Fast forward to the US, go back to Brazil. And then one of the first opportunities that I found when I was back there was working in an inter-exchange agency. You know, the same agency that had sent me to the US invited me to work with them to be one of their guys sending people abroad. So I was managing one of their business units in a countryside city with a team of 5 people. And again, my job at that time was really be finding new customers, so establishing partnerships with, let's say, English schools that would have students that would be interested in traveling and living abroad. And I kept working with that for about 2 years. When I finally was asked to participate on an interview as well for an American multinational, which was a Fortune 500 company on the B2B segment, mostly on the automotive industry. And then again, it was marketing. I became a marketing analyst. And then things kept moving. Some years later, I was invited to another process, and then it was for Mars that we will mention a bit later. And then I became a product manager. And then, when I look in retrospective, it wasn't really as much as I chose marketing, but it was just a natural path where I feel that the things that I was passionate about just came together in a very seamless way and just made my journey come together in a way that felt natural in that sense.
That's great.
Yeah.
Now, this will also lead me to my next question is, you mentioned just there right now is that you worked at Mars. How did you get this job, and how did working at Mars lead you to where you are working today, and that is Perfetti Van Melle?
I was doing pretty good at the time in that company that I mentioned. I was learning a lot and growing. I had been sent twice to the US for leadership training and courses. So at that time, I think they were really betting on me, and I was already seeing, the great opportunities that were ahead of me. One day I get this call, and it was a headhunter saying, "Hey, we have this company looking for someone." And I was lucky enough, to get that opportunity. At the time, I was living in the city where I am originally from, which is about 1.5 hours from São Paulo. São Paulo, as you probably know, is one of the biggest, well, it's the biggest city in Brazil by far, and is really the economical capital of the country where things are really happening. And this company, well, Mars in Brazil, is located in São Paulo. So it was also a great opportunity for me, to go outside again of my comfort zone and go live in São Paulo, which is a massive city with a very bustling and very fast-paced city with a lot of things happening, but also where the biggest opportunities are. I had really amazing years in Mars. Mars is a company that I would say that was the defining company for what I would have become as an adult working in marketing. It's a company that has some traits that I really appreciate. So it's like the company I work today is a family-owned company, which makes it able to think long-term strategically, not being so much pressured by, having to deliver to the stakeholders. It's really great. And in that sense, gives a bigger opportunity. Yeah, after working many years in Mars, I learned a lot particularly about how to keep people engaged. Mars has this culture that is really strong. One of the things that they tell to any manager is people don't leave the company, they leave their managers. So that's a sort of weight and accountability that they give you. They not only ask you to be a great leader, but they also give you the tools to be a great leader. So they will really invest on you in terms of managing your leadership skills and what exactly means lead and engage people. And they really have also a strong company culture. I particularly love that one. And if anyone is curious to study about it, they have what they call the 5 principles. And that's pretty much written on every wall on the company. And they really incentivize you, like when you're going through a challenge and you don't know exactly what to do, and you don't know how to answer to that business challenge, think about it in the light of the 5 principles. And those are very universal and powerful principles that in a way make people aspire something, to be part of something that is bigger than themselves. So I learned a lot about it during the years that I worked there. But that eventually led me to Perfetti Van Melle, which one day I was lucky enough to receive another call and eventually participated on the process. And at the time, it was a really nice, interesting prospect for me because Royal Canin is an amazing, beautiful brand, the brand that I was working during my tenure in Mars. It was a bit B2B oriented, so to say. And I really was looking to transition into a B2C position where I could really be working on a big global or impactful communication campaigns. And Perfetti Van Melle gave me that opportunity, as in Brazil, I was invited to lead the Mentos brand, which was one of the biggest brands that we have in our portfolio globally. So that was really inspiring to me at the time. Also, I had a nice team, and it was my first, opportunity to really lead people in a multinational environment and within a marketing structure. Yeah. So then I started working 3.5 years there in Brazil, where I helped grow Mentos brand in the market with some very interesting and impactful campaigns. Until one day, I was lucky enough again to be invited to join our headquarters here in Amsterdam, and switch responsibilities, now looking more for how we grow our business globally, and particularly looking after the Chupa Chups brand that I mentioned at the beginning of this call. which is such a privilege and an opportunity. It's a beloved brand that many millions of people love across the globe, and I am honored, let's say, to contribute for this equity and for this heritage to continue moving forward.
When you keep saying Mars, I have to keep reminding myself it's Mars, the chocolate candy bar brand, and not the planet Mars, because you keep referring back to Mars. So yeah, no, talking about moving abroad again. So did you find it easier moving to Amsterdam just because you already had experience living abroad in the US and then you also moved to Sao Paulo? So did it make things easier or did it make it more difficult?
I would think that definitely having had the experience to already go outside of my comfort zone once, it was something that gave me the assurance, let's say, that I would be able to do it again. But I was on a completely different moment of my career in my life. For instance, I had my wife with me now. So that meant that any decisions I was making, I was not making them only for myself. There was also family involved. Plus, I was going from the same company abroad, but with such a wider scope in terms of responsibility that it's impossible for you not to question yourself at some point, like, hey, am I going to be able to do it? Do I have what it takes to do this?
Yeah.
So I trusted within me that I had what it took to be able to do it. But I also had to take my wife with me, and I had to completely change, our lives, let's say. Whereas in the US, I was already a costume, let's say, or is a type of culture that has a lot of more a presence in Brazil, so you kind of feel that it's natural. When it comes to Europe, of course, you have such a diversity here, and Brazil also has a strong influence from Europe overall. My heritage, for instance, is coming from Italians and Germans overall, but it's completely different. And particularly the Netherlands, kind of an island with its own culture and its own way of living. But it's such an amazing country. It's beautiful, and it's everything works so well. So I consider myself really a privileged person to have the chance to live in such an amazing place that really allows you the possibility to have a incredible work-life balance, as well as so safe, clean, and organized. So, yeah. So to cut short, Manav, I think of course it helped me, but every move is a move, and every moment of your life is a different moment, and every moment comes with a new sets of challenges. Let's say. So as long as you're open, as long as you're hopeful, and you are committed to what you're doing, it will work out. But it doesn't come without certain challenges, right? I
Of
remember me and
course.
my wife first week, yeah, just going to the supermarket was an adventure when we didn't even know what was the name of a strawberry.
Oh,
So
okay.
these kind of things, of course, and then you go around and the signs they're all in Dutch. So where do I go? So yeah, but in a way, I mean, each single opportunity like this that I had in my life, like it really contributed for me to expand further and further, get out of my comfort zone, try out new things, meet new people. And I would strongly advise to anyone listening to us, never settle. Yeah, the world is big. There's a lot to see there, a lot of people to know.
Like you said, I mean, to be honest, Amsterdam's one of my favorite cities in the world. I just love the cleanness, the safety, the vibe. Just going there is close to London. That helps. The environmental friendliness. Yeah, no, it's great.
Yeah.
And so talking about also, I guess, trying to give advice to people for someone looking to study marketing or like in a global brand that you do, what would you say to them?
I think in a way it's really important for each one of us to really think through what is it that is something that can really motivate you to try to be the best version of yourself every day, right? Like many people say, yeah, look, what's your passion? And then if you do only your passion, things will work out. Although I think this is true to a certain extent, I also believe that anything you do, your passion or not, if you do it with passion, you're also going to thrive. So for me, I think it's really important for you to understand what the discipline that you feel like you're interested in is about, because oftentimes we can romanticize a little bit and think about what a profession is without knowing what it is about in reality. So I would definitely advise, well, get in touch with people that are doing what you think you're going to be doing, and get to understand a bit more what it means and what you can do. And also, when you think about a discipline like marketing, is also extremely diverse in terms of skills and abilities and what exactly you can do within this universe, particularly on the past years with the advance with the digital marketing and so on. So that would be one thing. I think for me, what made a lot of difference was that marketing is in the intersection of things that for me were very valuable. So like I told you, I was always super interested about history. and about humanity and about human beings overall. And of course, marketing is about people, is about the human insights, and it's about what people care, cherish, fear, love. And so if you're not passionate about people, and if you're not passionate about finding solutions that will make people's lives better, that's probably not an area for you. Another thing that marketing has is that it's very strategic. Marketing is how you will communicate and engage people towards a goal or towards an objective that is set strategically by your company, let's say. So how are you going to engage and connect with people in a way that they will see the value of your offer? So it's also very important to, have specific goals and have a specific set of initiatives that we will address. So strategy, in a way, is also a big important part. And the last part I want to cover is about creativity and storytelling, of course. Growing up, my father was an artist, let's put it that way. So he painted the paintings, he did sculptures, and he got interested about so many different things throughout his life. And that from early days really instilled me a sense of aesthetics and design, as well as love for arts that I think was really, really important. And I also mentioned before about movies, right? And how I was always super impacted by the power of storytelling and telling stories and changing people's lives. So in a way, I would say, yeah, definitely those are the three main areas that got me interested about marketing. And I think that if you or anyone feels that those areas mean something for them, that's definitely something, an area that they should go after, go deeper, understand a bit more how it works, how it operates, and deep dive on it and go for it. It's a beautiful area. And it's about, like I said, really conveying meaning and getting people behind an idea and behind a brand that conveys something that is big and is important. So yeah, definitely a passionate area to work for.
You need to give a TED talk, Martin. After all of that, I was just trying to take notes in my mind, but I know I can go back to this all the time and hear that. For any subject, I think what you just said, I think it's really true. It just determines what motivates you and what inspires you, or that passion. So I was passionate to study psychology at university because I wanted to learn more about myself and why people are the way they are. For example, I'm guessing that's for you with international relations. So that's great.
Yeah, no, and I was thinking as you were saying, because you said, well, why did you choose marketing? And looking in retrospective, I think it was more like marketing chose me, because as mentioned, is a discipline where a lot of my passions came together in a very seamless way. So yeah, I hope to continue in this career many more years and creating more impactful campaigns to touch people's hearts as we go forward.
Amazing stuff, Martin. Now we're coming to the last two questions, but I'm actually going to combine them. So first question is, what are you up to nowadays? And the second question is, what would you say to your 18-year-old self?
Very good. So, well, currently, as I mentioned, I'm sitting in Amsterdam on the headquarters of Perfetti Van Melle on the professional stage, let's say. So I'm leading Chupa Chups brand globally, and I'm responsible for global campaigns as well as innovation, new product launches, and the strategy that will drive the brand forward. So, yeah, I started this position now, leading a team of 8 people just about 6 months ago. So I'm still like integrating and starting really to implement some new activities and initiatives within the teams and also within the company, which I'm very proud and motivated to continue pushing forward. So it's a new step in my career that amplified the complexity to a different level than what I was accustomed before. But in a way, it's been a really fulfilling and enriching experience, and I'm looking forward to what's to come in that sense. And also connected a little bit to what we said before about, what were the main takeaways of my 20s. What I would tell to my 18-year-old Martin is what I was saying a little bit before. Keep your hunger. Keep doing things and keep trying to perfect yourself, because I know now, looking in retrospective, that this pays off. All the hours that you spend more studying, trying to be better, understanding new subjects, or, just overall being curious about things around you and how things works, it will definitely going to pay off. But it's also super important to be kind to yourself, super important to be mindful of others, and super important to, make sure that you feel whole. like just pursue things because you have this like inner drive that you need to do things because, you know, someone is telling you, or your inner, let's say, voice is telling you, you need to do something. No, I mean, you need to be whole. You need to feel good about the things you're doing, and you need to feel good about the people you're touching. And I would really advise myself when I was 18, like, think a little bit about purpose. What is it that you do, and what will this mean to you? Because in a way, lives are short. Now I'm reaching 42. I still have a lot of time to go, but I also realize how fast that went. I'm very proud that I took every single opportunity that came my way to go forward, to learn more. And I'm also very proud that when there were setbacks, because that's something I would tell Martin of 18 years old, there will be setbacks. There will be failure. There will be things that you want to accomplish and you can't do it. But if you take that as food for you to continue doing what you're doing, you're definitely going to grow better and stronger and more efficient as the time passes. So I'll leave it all there, Manav, because you really inspired me by this question and by all the questions that we had today. I had a really great time. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining here today, first of all. For those who like to get in touch and learn more about you, what would be the best way for them to do that?
I'm across social media, but of course my LinkedIn, of course, when you can get in touch with me and know a bit more about my ideas, what I post, what I communicate in general. Always interested about what's happening in the world of marketing, particularly AI on the past years. Yeah, so please feel free to get in touch. I will be more than happy to exchange more ideas and help in any way I can, of course.
Great. Thanks, Martin. We'll put that LinkedIn profile right below. And for those watching here right now, make sure to like and subscribe. A new guest will be on the podcast very soon. Thank you, Martin, for joining me here today, and speak to you soon.
Thanks a lot, Manav.